Welcome to Talk the Walk. I'm Jaynie Morris, and it's great to have your company once again. My job is to bring to you people who are raising their voices, uniting with others, exploring solutions to issues and challenges, and most of all, inspiring others with what they do. In today's Talk the Walk podcast, I've invited a very special person who is the CEO of CancerCouncil South Australia. Now, apart from the fact that we'd like to dig a little deeper on his background and what he does in that role as CEO, we're also going to explore, because it is May, it is the Australia's biggest morning tea month. And so we're going to explore a little bit more of that because, of course, my business, Sure is Unlimited, a little plug here. We are actually hosting one of these biggest morning teas for CancerCouncil this year, a little bit more at the end of the podcast for that. But in the meantime, what I would like to do is I'm not going to introduce anything on your bio, Lincoln, because I'm going to throw some curveballs as we talk. But I would like to welcome you very much to Talk the Walk podcast today.
Thank you, Jaynie, and I look forward to whatever curveballs you throw me.
Now, as I mentioned, Lincoln, you are the CEO of CancerCouncil South Australia. Can you, now you've been in that role since, is it 2015?
That's correct, yep.
Right, excellent, thank you. So before you came along to CancerCouncilSA, what were you doing in the world?
A very eclectic career. I don't know that you want to go right into it. It'll probably take 20 minutes of recounting everything that I've done. Look, immediately prior, I was Chief Executive of a Medicare local, which was a Rudd government initiative integrating and coordinating primary health care across regions. The region I looked after was Country South SA, the Medicare local, and that was about 75,000 square kilometres of coverage from the Riverland down to Limestone Coast, and sort of from Murray Bridge across to the Victorian border. So it took in everything from Renmark down to Mount Gambier and, as I said, Murray Bridge across to Pinaroo. Prior to that, as I say, an eclectic career in a number of industries, predominantly senior management. But I guess what stood me instead for this role was the primary health side of things, and that gave me a good appreciation for risk factors associated with chronic disease, of which you can probably put cancer in that basket. So yeah, I've been here for 6 years, and it's been a great journey.
So what attracted you when the role became available at CancerCouncilSA? What was it about this amazing organisation that attracted you?
It's a very strong brand, and I guess the brand relies on trust, and the mission is fantastic. I mean, what we do here in terms of the whole cancer care continuum, we play in the space from prevention through to screening, diagnosis, and ultimately support. So it's a complete package. The fundraising that we do is really the enabling side of things. The reason we get up in the morning is our mission, which is around cancer control and meeting the unmet need and supporting all those people affected by cancer. So the attraction was, I myself haven't been touched by cancer, but certainly have relatives and family that have been, and friends. So it's one of those areas that has interest, and because cancer is multifaceted in terms of tumor-specific, blood-borne, and up to 50% of cancers can be prevented through just lifestyle modification and addressing risk factors. It was an organisation that attracted me because there was the prevention side of it, and there was actually the doing good side of it and giving back to community as part of what we do for supporting those people affected by cancer.
One of the many things that we know about the Cancer Council, especially here in the CancerCouncilSA, is that, and you mentioned it just then, you do have facilities, very predominant facilities around, not just in the CBD, but also regionally. The services that you do offer play a great role, not just for individuals who have been affected by cancer, but also the extended families and the roles that helping them play in that support. That must be incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
Oh, it is. And when you talk about support facilities, the flagship facility we have is our accommodation, which is Because South Australia is a city-state model, most complex surgeries and radiotherapy occurs in Adelaide. So people have to travel from regional South Australia to Adelaide for treatment. And that's normally on an extended cycle of 6 weeks or more. So that support network, that ability to provide that home away from home experience and I guess normalise treatment for people that have to come to Adelaide is an extremely important part of what we do. The other side of the support is the service we offer through information and support. And that's through our 13 11 20 information support line, which is staffed by cancer nurses, and also the psychosocial counselling and the social work we provide. Because besides the devastation of having a cancer diagnosis, the other aspect is once you've survived it, how you deal with the psychological aspects of it. So, re-establishing relationships where you might have had an imbalance between partners because one's become a carer whilst the other one has been going through the diagnosis, re-establishing work back into the workforce, and, dealing with the anxiety of having survived cancer, waking up every morning and thinking that little niggle you've got, is that something that's going to affect me? Dealing with medication toxicity. I'm rambling, Jaynie, but in terms of your original question, what we do here, it's dealing with all of those aspects of trying to give people normality and dealing with the aftermath of surviving a cancer diagnosis.
And I think that's really important because many of our listeners will probably right now be thinking, oh my gosh, when I think of organisations like CancerCouncilSA, I'm thinking of the core issue, cancer. But many of us wouldn't think about the services that are required or the support that are required, as you mentioned, of a mental health capacity. They wouldn't sort of correlate the two. And the fact that you actually have those services, I think is fantastic. You would have found that COVID played an interesting negative role, would you not?
Yeah, COVID did. So COVID impacted us a number of ways, both in terms of denying people access to services. So certainly when COVID was alive and people were undertaking active treatment, we noticed there was about a 40 to 50% drop off of screening practices. So people were dissuaded from going to GPs, dissuaded from having screening. And that certainly has a long-term impact because if you've delayed screening, then you potentially have increased your chance of a late-stage diagnosis, and therefore the prognosis has advanced. The other aspect is the social isolation. So again, if you're under treatment and denied the ability, or again have anxiety about going to a hospital because of the COVID basis, it can change people's way they address treatment. It can change the support networks they have with family and friends around them. And I guess it's a good segue into Australia's biggest morning tea, because whilst Australia's biggest morning tea, we were unable to host it last year, this year provides the opportunity to get people to re-engage again, to socialise. And being social creatures that we are, we crave and we thrive on that ability to be able to interact with people, touch, hug. We're tactile people, so that whole support aspect is extremely important. And the biggest learning from COVID, besides, as I say, the barrier that would have put up for people to delay going and seeking medical assistance, was that social isolation and impacting mental health from the point of view of not having the social work around them, the networks around them. And whilst you've got FaceTime and everything else, it's that physical presence which really helps in terms of holistic well-being and health.
So let's talk about biggest morning tea. It's now, I wouldn't say it's the biggest annual event for council, for CancerCouncilSA, because of course, being the CEO of CancerCouncilSA, you're a big fan of donning lycra, I hear. And so I would suggest that there are other.
Yeah, had to bring it up.
So how's that working for you, Lincoln?
It's not at the moment, Jaynie. So prior to joining Cancer Council, no, I did not don lycra, and I swore that I wouldn't wear lycra. However, during the tour down under, we do have a cycling event, and it's called Ride for a Reason, and that mobilises a number of people to fundraise whilst also getting physically active, which is another nice link into cancer prevention. So personally, I've ridden a bike for 6 years. I've hung up my boots, for want of a better analogy, but thoroughly enjoyed it. So yes, cycling is an important part of our fundraising. But getting back to Australia's biggest morning tea, if I can just now divert and take your attention away from Lycra, the biggest morning tea is probably our largest flagship event, both nationally and here in South Australia. And it serves two purposes. One, for bringing people together to share. And the whole notion of Australia's biggest morning tea was based on the fact that a cancer diagnosis happens every 5 minutes or so in Australia, which is the average length of a tea break. So that was really the notion behind it. And as an activity, the whole premise behind it is gather, share, and give. That's the whole aspect of it. And again, in a family home, where's the activity that most people generate around? The kitchen, the family table, the meal. It's that ability again to interact, connect, and share. So Australia's biggest morning tea has been operating for about 28 years. So I think this is our 28th year this year. And in terms of recognition and mobilisation, it would be the largest event we have on our calendar.
So throughout the course of May, and with all of these biggest morning teas happening right around Australia, how many do you have to go to, one or two every day?
The official day is the 27th of May, but you can host a morning tea anywhere between the month of May and June. My biggest day is the 27th. That's I try to get around to as many as possible. But look, on average, on a normal year, I'd attend probably 8 to 10 morning teas across the 2 months. So it's not an onerous task. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love getting out and meeting people. Some of the food that people prepare is amazing. But yeah, look, from my point of view, it's not a burden at all. It's an actual joy to go out and meet the people that actually support us.
As far as fundraising is concerned, am I right to say that with CancerCouncilSA, the biggest component of generating income would be through fundraising, or do you get an equal amount from other areas such as general bequests or philanthropic or the government?
Yeah, so look, we've got about a $17 million operating budget. Half of that, around about $8 to $9 million worth, we need to generate through fundraising every year, and that includes bequests, legacies, community fundraising, and the like. Then the next split is a third. So of the remaining amount, a third we get from investment income. A third we get from government grants to run programs like Indigenous Aboriginal smoking cessation programs, where here from South Australia, we run a national program across Australia where we go into community and train Aboriginal health workers in smoking cessation. And then the remaining third is from our lodge income, which we generate through the lodge accommodation. So that gives you a rough rule of thumb. But yeah, around about $9 million-ish is what we need to raise every year from fundraising to maintain the operations of the business.
Are you finding that in certainly the current economic climate, if not the way things have been going over the last 5 or 6 years in particular that you've been there as CEO, that the fundraising dollar is getting smaller and smaller? And so events like Biggest Morning Tea are a great igniter of that because of all the reasons we've already shared?
Yeah, there's two aspects to it. Certainly donor fatigue is there. There are more asks on people, and there's a lot of fatigue because you've got a lot of organisations competing for a smaller piece of the pie. What we find, though, with the generosity of our donors is that whilst the number of donors remains static, the dollar value per donation in some instances has actually increased. So the generosity within our donor base has actually increased in certain aspects. Bequest income is a difficult one. That's about managing a relationship, and normally bequest income doesn't come, there's about an 8-year lag time between when someone nominates you in the will, and then you receive the funds. So short answer to your question, Jaynie, it's a combination of maintaining relationships with donors, because there is donor fatigue and there is a huge amount of ask out there from a number of organisations. But what we're seeing is certainly on some events, the average donation dollar is increasing per capita. So it's encouraging.
That's great to hear. Now, this year, with the Australia's Biggest Morning Tea, as we've already talked about, everybody's having them. They're having them in their homes. A lot of people are booking venues and hosting sort of bigger, a little bit more grander type of functions as well. I myself am going to a friend's place on the 27th. She is currently going second round of cancer therapies. So she's hosting one there, and I have been practicing my baking for that one. But the week before, on Friday the 21st, as I mentioned, my business, my company, Shiro's Unlimited, are hosting a Biggest Morning Tea here in Adelaide at the Once and Again Cafe on Marion Road at South Plympton. Now, our special guest is the gorgeous Genevieve Teresa Hazy, former lady, Mayoress of Adelaide, and she's so thrilled to be able to come down and be our guest speaker. And we have 10 tickets left to that as we go to air today with this podcast. But all the details for that event are over at the Shiro's Unlimited website or at the Shiro's Unlimited Facebook page, or of course you can go to jayniemorris.com. So we're excited about having that, and we're hoping we've got a big mega raffle there, Lincoln, and we've got all of our. Now, one of the things that if anybody who's listening is thinking, I could host one of these in my home, I could have my friends around for this. Now, you do have fabulous support packs that people can get, don't you, with bunting and cake wrappers, and the Cancer Council SA puts a lot into this, don't they?
Yeah, so we try and make everyone's hosted event as successful as possible. So if anyone wants to register to host a Biggest Morning Tea, they can do so by going to the website biggestmorningtea.com.au, or they can ring Cancer Council on, I haven't got the number in front of me, I must find it. I'll find it before the end of the podcast. 1300 65 65 85. And you can register that way. And what we'll then do is send a host pack out to you, which, as you say, includes recipe tips, bunting, various paraphernalia, to make your event as successful as possible and to make you as a host as successful as possible.
It's exciting. I've received mine. We've
Good.
received ours. We're very excited for it. Now, Lincoln, before I let you go, if anybody listening to our Talk the Walk podcast today would like to get more information about Cancer Council SA, is it cancersa.org.au that they could
Yes. So that's the website. And if anyone needs to reach out for support services, 13 11 20 is the number to ring. And that will put you through to a cancer nurse. And that's a free service. So it doesn't matter whether you're the person diagnosed with cancer or you're a family member, unsure of how to approach someone, or a workmate wanting to have a conversation. That service is there for anyone who wants to ring and get information. But yes, cancersa.org.au or 13 11 20.
Excellent. And all of those details will be underneath where you're listening to this podcast right now. It'll be in the comments section for you as well. So the number to register if you would like to host your own Australia's Biggest Morning Tea is 1800 65 65 85. You know you want to go baking. You know you want to get out there and impress everyone with your culinary skills. You know you just want to, as Lincoln has already said, gather, share and give. Lincoln Size, it's been a pleasure to have you on our podcast today, Talk the Walk, and we wish you all the very best for May, Australia's Biggest Morning Tea.
Thank you, Jaynie. I've sincerely appreciated the opportunity to speak and congratulate you on hosting your own morning tea as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast just as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you, make sure that you comment below, share it as well, and let your friends know about Talk the Walk, because we love, as I said before, we love to bring you different ideas, organizations, people making a difference to our communities, because that's what it's all about. So until the next time, this is Jaynie Morris signing off from Talk the Walk and wishing you an absolutely fabulous day.